for the last hour of the show. But right now, as we do every single Friday, is catch up with NBC Sports Bay Area and the sports leaders 49ers insider Matt Mayoko. He joins us on the Yuma guest line as well as the really, really, really ridiculously good-looking guest cam on the stream if you're watching us on YouTube and Twitch. Matt, yesterday we had our Dubs roundtable talking all things Warriors ahead of their home opener, and we got into the discussion about the logic game and how, well, Steph Curry is one of those people that always defies logic in the sense that, yeah, you wouldn't think the Warriors are a top 2 or 3 team in the Western Conference. They shouldn't be favored to win a title, but they're a team that you also don't want to bet against because they still have that guy. And so I used the line, well, hey, if we want to dive too deep into the logic game, the 49ers aren't 5-2. They're probably 2-5 at this point. A lot of that goes to Robert Saleh. A lot of that goes to Mac Jones. And a lot of it goes to collective team effort of making these game-winning, game-closing plays. But since we haven't talked to you since that Atlanta Falcons game, just your general thoughts on that Sunday Night Football display, the Atlanta offense, all of those top 10 draft picks, they got held to 10 points by a defense that had no Nick Bosa and no Fred Warner.
Yeah, and Bijan Robinson was the second best running back on the field that night. That tells you a lot right there. Yeah, I mean, it is a long season. You know, they have played 7 games, and so I think it's just going to be a constant evolution of where this team goes from here, and on both sides of the ball. But I would say specifically on the defensive side, Robert Saleh really has his work cut out for him to keep this thing going. And this week is going to be no different. The Texans don't have a great offense, but the 49ers right now don't have much of a pass rush. And the way you beat the Texans is by putting a little bit of pressure on C.J. Stroud. And I know all quarterbacks are impacted by pressure, but it just seems to me like Stroud is impacted maybe more than most. And so this isn't necessarily the game the 49ers would want to have their 3 top pass rushers out. You know, obviously Bosa for the entire season, Huff out for a couple weeks, and Yetur Gross-Matos out for a couple more weeks probably. So it does set up as not a great game where the 49ers meet this Texans team where they are 49ers from a health standpoint, especially on the defensive line. They'll probably have to do some more things, be a little bit more creative as they were, I thought, Sunday night against the Falcons, bringing up some well-timed blitzes and showing some different looks. So they'll probably have to do more of that. But, yeah, I mean, 5-2, I don't think that could be anybody who roots for the 49ers who's disappointed with how this season has started.
Matt, is John Lynch, it sounds like John Lynch has got 2 different things going on. He's telling Murph and Marcus that, hey, we like our, do you guys need to acquire a pass rusher? We like our guys. We absolutely do not need to make a deal. And yet Adam Schefter and Albert Breer and others reporting that the Niners are, quote, very active in reaching out with teams to make a trade, presumably for a pass rusher. So is that Lynch just kind of publicly downplaying it and privately working his tail off to get a pass rusher?
Well, I do think that both things can be equally true. I think that they can look and make a lot of calls and just kind of see what's out there. It doesn't mean they're going to make a trade, a big money trade or, something like that. But, I mean, just logic would tell you, yeah, I mean, I can understand why they would like their guys. I mean, they signed these guys, they drafted these guys. They're on the team, and so they know all these guys. And like I said, I mean, I'm sure they do like him or they want to be here. But I think you, me, and everybody else can see that there's a major deficiency right now when it comes to the 49ers outside pass rush. And I think it would be, general managerial malpractice if he didn't canvass the league and see what's out there. Now it's a matter of, does it make sense? Making phone calls and figuring out who's available and who's not available, doing all that work doesn't mean that a trade's going to happen. I think something will happen. I just don't think it's going to be like this huge splash. And I'm not sure that maybe that's what he's kind of talking about. Like they don't need, to bring in a big name guy who's at the, on the final year of his contract I would be surprised if the 49ers do acquire a pass rusher on a contract that's set to expire, because it just seems to me like it doesn't make any sense to strip away resources for the future that can only for it to acquire a player who can only help you this year. So, if they can find that sweet spot of a player who not only is here for the duration of this season, but also is under contract for next year, now we're talking. I think now that's something that could work out. And the problem is, trying to find those teams or a team that has a player like that, a defensive lineman with upside who's under a manageable contract for next year. It's those aren't easy to come by. And one of the guys that kind of comes to mind would be someone that Robert Saleh knows well, Jermaine Johnson with the Jets. But would the Jets make that deal? A guy would be on the 5th-year option next year, $13 million, which is a fine number for a defensive end. Something that I think the 49ers could afford. But if you're looking for the Trey Hendrickson deal or the Max Crosby deal, I don't see those happening. But I do see the 49ers doing something. They just seem like every year they come up with something. Sometimes it's really small. Sometimes it's sometimes it's small that really doesn't amount to much, like last year with Khalil Davis, not Kalia Davis, who's with the 49ers now, but Khalil Davis, who just finished out last season, and now I'm not even sure where he is in the NFL. They've also made the huge swings and the big splashes for McCaffrey and Chase Young. I'd put him in that category. And then they've done, some other deals, Charles Omenihu, Jordan Willis, and others. So they always seem to do something. I just don't think they're going to do anything that mortgages the future, whether it's a really valuable draft pick for next year or a high salary number that impacts how the roster stands a year from now. So I expect them to do something. I do think that, they might like their defensive line as it's currently situated, but if they make a deal to bring somebody else in, then they would like their defensive line a heck of a lot more.
It's interesting, Matt. Connor Hughes, who covers the Jets, to put out a video clip today saying that that Quinnen Williams wants out and that the Jets would be willing to take a second-round pick for Quinnen Williams. I only bring him up because I know Robert Saleh. I watched Hard Knocks. Yeah. Robert Saleh has this love affair with Quinnen Williams. That would be a monumental move, bigger than the moves that we're describing here, most likely, or even expecting here. But, there's John Lynch, I think, doesn't want to – I think he doesn't want to get – I think he probably doesn't want to get anybody who has a questionable motor because of the Chase Young thing. And I don't think he really wants to get anybody that he doesn't – have a real good feel of how hard they'll play. But that's why I think maybe the Jets guys are interesting, because Robert Saleh's got that firsthand experience with those guys, and he would have a much better feeling for exactly if they would play hard and if they would fit the Niner culture. But Quinnen Williams for a second-round pick would be a earth-shattering move, and that would really shake things up.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at his contract right now. So you're talking about $21 million for 2026, 25.5 million for 2027. So, and giving up a second round pick, that's it is a steep price to pay. They'd have to consider that. Like, if they take on that salary, what does that mean? Would they have to get rid of somebody else? So, that's something that they would have to figure out, whether that makes sense for them. And you'd be getting a player for, the rest of this season and 2 more years, as opposed to using that second round pick on a player. And look at it this way. I think when you look at the 49ers draft for 2026, I kind of look at it like, right now they have picks in the first, second, and third round and a bunch of picks in the fourth round. If out of those first 3 picks, they can get an offensive lineman, an edge rusher, and maybe a wide receiver with those 3 picks, that kind of sets themselves up for next year. So, with defensive tackle be high on that list, I don't know because I think that Alfred Collins is looking and trending in a very positive direction. CJ West is going to get better. They have some guys in the interior defensive line that are good. Maybe not game-changing star types of players like Quinnen Williams, but to me, their biggest need is outside pass rusher.
Yeah.
They just don't have the guys that bring the juice. And right now, they're down Bosa, they're down Yetur Gross-Matos, they're down Bryce Huff. Now, this is a temporary thing with Gross-Matos and Huff, although Gross-Matos' injury has kind of been lingering and just kind of seems at this point that he's never really going to be fully healthy. But to me, I think the bigger need for the 49ers is outside pass rush.
All right, a little break from the content to tell you about our friends over at Sleeper. This 49er football season is presented on the Krug Show by Sleeper, the fastest growing fantasy platform in the world. It's a one-stop shop. You get blazing fast news, real-time stats, group chat, season-long leagues, and, of course, Sleeper picks for daily fantasy. Use promo code Larry, Larry, and Sleeper will match your first deposit up to $100. Links in the description. Terms and conditions do apply.
Talking to Matt Mayoko here on the UMA guest line. This is probably the question they continuously ask in Houston. CJ Stroud, it wasn't just that he had a great rookie season. He was so poised. He saw the field so well. He looked like a 5-year vet out there. Why has he regressed so much to where the offense can't really move the ball and he doesn't necessarily trust what he sees and he is more turnover prone and looks more like a rookie than he did in his rookie season?
Well, he really is impacted by the pass rush, and we could probably say that about every quarterback in the league. No quarterback likes to have a pocket collapsing around him. No quarterback likes to be hit as he's throwing. And I don't know if he's gotten gun shy a little bit with the inability of the Houston Texans to either craft game plans to protect him or acquire the offensive linemen or just the pass protection as a whole to protect him. I was just looking at what the Houston Texans have done as far as their drafts and the offensive line, and they have used a second round pick or better in each of the past 4 years on offensive linemen. And there's only one of those guys who's starting for them, and that's Ariante Ursary right now, who's their starting left tackle. He's a rookie, but the year before they took a tackle in the second round. He's a backup. The year before that, they took a guard in the second round. He's a backup. The year before that, they took a tackle in the first round, and he's not even with the organization anymore. So I do think that whether it's regressed or just not surrounding him either with the coaching, the system, or the personnel around him, CJ Stroud is not nearly the quarterback. He's not nearly thought of as highly as he was as a rookie, and that offense isn't very good. I mean, it's really bad. In fact, I mean the amount of the situations that the Texans defense put CJ Stroud in the offense in Monday night was remarkable. I mean, 4 takeaways, 1 touchdown generated by the defense, and the Texans could not hold up their end of the bargain at all.
Yep.
To me, this game, talking about CJ Stroud and how he seems to kind of crumble under pressure a little bit, the 49ers have to find a way to get pressure on him. And it's not going to be easy because the 49ers don't have those horses to get after him. So it might be kind of a similar situation as it was Sunday night, where I don't think the 49ers blitzed a whole lot, but it seemed to me like they blitzed more than they usually do. But they were able to really do it strategically and push the right buttons at the right time. Robert Saleh calling the defenses. So I think they're going to have to do more of that. I think if they can't get there with their 4-man rush early in the game, then they're going to have to find ways to get pressure on CJ Stroud and get some hits on him.
Maddie, forgive me if I'm asking you a question you don't know the answer to, but to me, it's really interesting that Jed York and the York family are selling $275 million stake in the franchise to Peter Brigger, who's an Atherton resident, and I guess he purchased a non-controlling minority interest in the team, and it's supposedly 3.2% stake. So Jed York has sold 6.2% shares of the franchise in May. He still retains 87.8% of the ownership. But this guy, Brigger, is an executive chairman and managing partner of Fortress Investment Group. He manages a portfolio of it's over $53 billion in asset management. So that's how he came into his wealth. But I guess the question that I've gotten from many Niner fans as they've seen this headline the last week or so is why. What is the game plan here, Matt? And I don't know if you have the answer to this, but do you know why Jed is selling off little pieces of this? Are they cash poor? Is it in any way about the football team, the soccer teams, the Super Bowl? What can you share with us?
Yeah, what I've been told with that is that the soccer teams, the Rangers and Leeds, is run completely different from the 49ers. And it isn't just Jed who owns the 49ers. It's the family. And what he told me in May, I believe it was that, there are different ideas within the family of how money should be invested or certain needs, both, inside, just family related businesses or whatnot. So it was my understanding that before the sales, that took the York ownership from like 97% of the team down to 87.9%, is that the 49ers or the York family owned more of the 49ers than any other family owned of any other NFL team. So I think it's a way to obviously generate revenue for some of the family members who have other interests and who might want to invest in other areas. So I don't think there's too much to be read into it. The NFL did allow teams to sell off up to 10% of their franchises to private equity. And so I think it's just a way to diversify and put that money. Would you say 273 million? Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
276 or something like that. Something like that.
276, yeah. So I mean that's a lot of money. And so whenever the valuation was, I believe, 8.5 million, it only makes sense, that some family members would want to diversify and not have all their money, or liquefy some of that money as well. So I don't think there's anything to be read into it. I think no, the Yorks and Jed in particular have always viewed this as a long-term family commitment, where the 49ers are going to remain in the York family through generation after generation after generation. So it's just a little bit, a small stake that's being sold off, but Jed York and the York family will maintain control of the 49ers as they believe they will for the foreseeable future, well into the future.
Last couple minutes here with Matt Mayoko. All right, so Brock Purdy, I asked Krug this. They didn't put him on the IR, but if he doesn't play this weekend, then you got the infamous MetLife turf coming up there, which I would imagine would be a tough spot to return. And then Brandon Ayuk, originally we were given that week 5 to 10 timeline kind of range. It is week 8, and he seems to be nowhere to be seen. So just want to get your insight if you've heard anything, seen Ayuk working on a side field, if there's any update on when he might return. I know John Lynch said that he will play this season. And then as far as Brock Purdy, what you expect to happen as far as his timeline.
Yeah, I wish I could tell you something that sheds some light on either one of those two players. I think that, the idea that why the 49ers didn't put Brock Purdy on injured reserve is because they wanted to at least be able to gauge him and track his progress on the practice field. And so if they had placed him on injured reserve, he wouldn't be able to get out there and practice. And for the past couple of weeks, it's been limited work for him. So they've been able to kind of monitor him and kind of, like I said, track his progress. I do think that, they thought that he would be back around that 4-week window or before that. But I think they also learned from week 4 against the Jacksonville Jaguars that you just need to make sure that he is ready to go when he's ready to go. I agree with you with the assumption that bringing him back against the New York Giants would probably not be the best plan of attack. Where the 49ers are right now at 5-2, it does give them wiggle room. Not that, if you sign a guy to that kind of contract, you're not going to rush him back. You don't want to anyway. But where the 49ers are very much in the playoff hunt, atop the NFC West based on their 3-0 division record, they really can just do everything cautiously and make sure that when he comes back, he has a good chance of staying back. So that's one thing. With Brandon Ayuk, it is very interesting. It's a little bit mysterious what's going on there. I remember the preseason game against the Raiders where he's out there seemingly running routes before the game at full speed, and the thought then was like, man, he's ready to go. He had to sit out obviously the first 4 games of the season, and then after that is like, okay, where is he? I understand that there's been kind of a moving timetable of when he might be available. I think Kyle Shanahan said recently that he's kind of eyeing that 10-week mark, but as I understand it, that would be 10 weeks where they would open the window. And once they open that window, they're going to want to see him practice for a couple of weeks at least until he gets out there and plays. So yeah. I think it's very much up in the air of when Brandon Ayuk returns to the field. John Lynch, he said that he fully expects Brandon Ayuk to play at some point this season. I mean, I would say I would take probably the more cautious or skeptical approach and say, we'll see when he's out there. And then once he's out there, is he going to be the Brandon Ayuk of 2023? That remains kind of questionable. I just, we'll see. I'm just not sold yet that he will play this season. I haven't heard anything along that, but you're talking about a really serious injury. They're talking about it, not only the ACL, but it was other stuff there too. And so that takes time. And he looks, every time I've seen him, he looks good, but there must be something going on there with him in his interactions with for his medical staff or whatever, that maybe he's a little bit cautious right now and isn't feeling confident about stepping out there on the field or giving the green light for him to take that next step. So we'll see. I think it's all very much up in the air at this point.
Matty, one last one for me. I was standing right there at the practice yesterday when Chris Sarek was putting his defensive lineman through the paces, and it just happened, I happened to have a very, very up-close look at the D-line drills, and Chris was just absolutely in full froth, just screaming and yelling and
when is he not in full froth?
I know, but I mean, maybe it was just my proximity to the froth, but it was unbelievable. I mean, I sat there and I've recorded it, and I thought to myself, man, when I put this out, people are going to be. It's like you were in the huddle. But now you have no Gross Matos, you have no Bryce Huff, you have no Nick Bosa. Chris was just yelling up and down at Quinnen Williams and Robert Beal. He wants more out of those guys for sure. And then I'm thinking, who else has he got? He's got Trevis Gibson on the practice squad, and he's got William Bradley King on the practice squad. Are those guys going to get the elevation, you think, Saturday? Because, I feel like for edge rush-wise, they need all hands on deck. They may need to blitz Nick Martin in this game to get some rush. They're going to have to think outside the box here. They're running out of dudes.
Yeah, they are. There's no question about it. And, as I talked about earlier, where's that pass rush come from? There are guys, right now, of the guys on the 53-man roster, or put it this way, the guys who are going to be active on Sunday, there's only 3 sacks out of 7 games, and one of them's Upton Stout. Sam Okawanu with 1 sack, and it's Quinnen Williams with 1 sack. So Chris Kocurek, I think he kind of senses the urgency, and his thing has always been. I remember the first time I watched him on the practice field, it was in the off-season program, and I thought, this guy's is this guy nuts? Like, is he always like this? There's no way you can keep that up. Well, he does. And, his motor in practice is unbelievable. And it's his way of making sure that these guys are on it in practice. They never let down, so that when they get into a game, he tries to replicate that intensity, the get off at the snap of the ball. And that's something they work on every day in practice. But, at some point when you just lose so many guys, and I thought heading into this season that the weakness of the 49ers was its outside pass rush. Besides Bosa, who's going to be? Well, Bryce Huff has stepped up and he's played really well, but now he's out. I don't know how they're going to do it. Beal was brought up to the practice squad, or from the practice squad this week, so he'll be in uniform. It's time for him, if he wants to earn a uniform on game days the rest of the season, he has to show something. Travis Gibson, right now, when you look at the 49ers 53-man roster and getting down to the 48 active, I would imagine in about an hour here, we're going to hear a lot of names of 49ers who are going to be out for this game. Brock Purdy, Ricky Pearsall, those are two that don't have anything to do with the defense, but, Bryce Huff, Gross Matos, there are going to be some guys there, and probably Luke Gifford. He's had a hamstring injury that kept him out of practice, so they're going to have to find a way with the defensive linemen that they have on the 53-man and on the practice squad, because I would fully expect them to elevate two guys off the practice squad, and Travis Gibson could be one of them.
Matt, we always appreciate you on a Friday when we get to catch up. And did you do an Ask Papa this week, by the way?
No, Greg was, he's not there on KBR today. So, no, we weren't able to do it this morning.
Okay, yeah, just wanted to check because I know that he's missed the last couple of Fridays, but always enjoy when you guys do get to catch up on NBC. And we'll get him back Monday, and we'll have a lot to react to as far as this game. So whether it's with Krug, whether it's with JD, or whether it's with both Gregs, we always enjoy talking to you. And we'll see if, against all logic, back to where I opened up this interview, could the Niners be a 6-2 team by the time we talk next? We'll find out.
You never know. And by the way, for the next 49ers Talk podcast, instead of Greg Papa, Greg Bethune, who is the father of Tatum Bethune and also was the first youth football coach in Nick Bosa's career. And Nick credits Greg Bethune for being the person who turned him on to football and got him to love the sport. So,
wow.
So check that out if you get a chance anywhere you get your podcast.
Oh, will do. Good plug. Since Papa's not here to say it, I'll say it. Gregexcellent. Matt, we appreciate you always. Thanks for coming by.
Thanks,
All right,
Matt.
thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Matt Mayoko.